So here is the story in the Daily Nation, page 7. Homicide unit grows into bureau on rising number of murder cases. Now we know homicide is, the number of reported murders in this country has just been increasing.
Right.
And the story by Kamore Maina looks at how this unit came into being and says, for several years, Chief Inspector Muturi Kamonjo sat in room 31 in Mazingira House as the sole officer attached to a new DCI department called the Homicide Unit. The Homicide Unit started with one officer. You know that thing of, I started with a bin, and now I own
a desk,
a whole hotel chain. This is it.
Yeah.
Kamonjo, tasked with getting the new unit running, struggled to investigate anything. He had no detectives, he had no support staff, he had no vehicles or special tools, and there was no indication that he would get the required support to investigate some of the country's most heinous crimes. As at September 2008, when the new unit was set up, all Kamonjo had was a tiny office with one desk and one chair. That's it. The unit did not have a car to help with movement of its sole officer. There were 2,037 murders reported that year. That one man was supposed to investigate 2,037 murders. All others were being handled by officers not necessarily trained to crack murder cases. 2010, Dego Mohoro is appointed as the new DCI boss. And Mohoro assigned 2 corporals, one called Martin Yuguto and the other one called Clement Mwangi, to the homicide office with strict instructions: help Kamonjo get the ball rolling. That Yuguto is now the director of homicide at DCI. Mwangi is a senior detective in the same unit. It's been 15 years and over 44,000 murders later, and the DCI has been forced to grow what was a tiny office with 3 officers into a unit, and it's now a full-fledged bureau. On average, the reported number of murder cases increased by 1,000 or 50% since Nyuguto and Mwangi were assigned to that unit. The numbers have been rising. 3,031 murders reported in 2023. And they continue growing. Even up to now, the issue is whether Nyuguto's bureau has enough officers. What they do have now is that they have more officers who've been assigned. They are a unit. They have vehicles. Yes, they have more desks. Sawa. They have all those things, but it's still enough. If you think about all the murder cases that are just reported on a daily basis, if you talk about 3,000 plus in 2023, there obviously will be more in 2024. There will be more this year. Is the DCI well equipped to actually unearth all these murders? If you just go to Kware, about how many bodies were picked up from Kware? Those are like 50. All these places where there's a death, unexplained death, it's an issue of homicide. It has got to be investigated.
And even in the femicide cases, even with the cases of the extrajudicial killings, a lot of them will come and say, I haven't gotten any follow-through, I haven't gotten any support. We've tried to pick it up. There's a mother of one of the victims who has been pursuing justice since 2022. I know that doesn't seem so far. She's been relentless, and she'll just say, I hit a roadblock. So even if there's manpower, it says here manpower of over 200 officers. It talks about vehicles, etc. I really want to interrogate also the skill set and intentionality. I always say it starts in the mind. I always say it starts with that. Sometimes we have our certain nuances that can hold us back from approaching death and murder and how to probe that. Because people don't feel like there's justice, and they don't feel like the criminal investigation unit or homicide unit is able to follow through. I'd really hope we can have a conversation with them. Again, just like we're doing...
It would be good.
It would be, just like we're doing Lest We Forget on buildings and the support needed. What is needed here? What about citizen vigilance, which, I'm hinting at also something we'll talk about later. So yes, it's great that they've covered this piece and talked about how it's grown. How effective is it going to be? How are they working with social justice centers and community members who maybe have an idea of who the perpetrator could be, etc.? I know somebody who says she still sees her sister's perpetrator walking around free. Wow. So this is Kenyans' reality, walking around free in their neighborhood, like he hasn't done anything. So that's where my concern is you could have the manpower.
That capacity. If you think about 200 officers having 4,000 cases.
4,000 cases, that's also, does that balance out?
Is that enough? Is that enough? So it's about citizens just knowing that this thing happens. And as we watch CSIs, we see Horatio saying, I think this one died last night.
I have a hunch.
We need to have Nyuguto being the same as he's a Horatio guy.
Yeah, he is a Horatio. But there's also, I don't think it's a complete lack of capacity, I'll say this, because all our, whether it's the police service or the DCI, NIS, they have demonstrated time and time again that when sufficiently motivated, things can get done. So there's also that to keep in mind, that sometimes there just could be a lack of goodwill or some other, impediments to them being able to properly perform their duties. I do think that, of course, they are still understaffed and we do require more to be done. But it seems like if there's no political motivation, then your investigation will drag and drag and drag and drag, and you will go and follow up. Even from a basic, anything you've ever written an OB for, it's up to you to follow up if you want anything done, right? And half the time it's, what are you willing to do to facilitate this following up? And that's where we get lost. And unfortunately now when it's cases of, it's not a lost phone, it's a lost life, that still doesn't change. There's no, it's not that if you don't take the phone seriously, you'll somehow take murder seriously, right? It's a problem that's all through the system. So I think as far as a bureau is concerned, bureau is a big name, warrants big action. Hopefully that's something we can see, but I do agree capacity building is still necessary, especially in terms of human resource, to have that 200 people with 4,000 cases and rising. How can, we have a femicide committee, task force, etc. What resource have they been given specifically for them to be able to tackle this? What training have they been given to differentiate femicide from homicide, to be able to investigate it, to figure out if it's a serial killer or a lone actor or if it's a societal issue? I don't know. Mamoni Mengi, right?
You're making really good points. And it's about also, just because there was a task force set up, first there was 100 million shilling, commitment made. Again, we tend to let things fall through the cracks. I'm glad we're here daily to just say we need to bring
ensure
that
they
back.
don't.
Yes, so that we also know